Because of the tariffs, the market is going up and down, but is it an opportunity for investing, or would you want to wait until the impact passes?
So Olivia asks, are the tariffs creating an opportunity? Olivia is how old? 11. Okay, if you start your compounding at 11, so this is an excellent question. So anytime that something happens in markets that creates uncertainty, generally stocks go down, risk premia go up. And if you wait until the uncertainty goes away, then everything reprices, it's much more likely to go back to fair value. So the best time to be an investor deploying capital is in a period of maximum uncertainty. Whether it was COVID, now the tariffs, the financial crisis, each of these events that seemed catastrophic, it was an amazing time to deploy capital. And I think one way to do it is just by buying market indices during periods of time. But if you're an investor and you can do real work on companies, if you can actually find the great businesses that get mispriced during that period, you can make even more money. So yes, you as an investor, you should get excited anytime it gets exciting, anytime it gets uncertain, and the clouds come in, the storm is going. That's when you want to, have capital to invest.
What is a single biggest mistake you see investor make repeatedly, and what one principle where you most want next generation of investor?
Look, I think the mistake an investor makes early on in their career is being effectively too short-term and being affected by short-term factors that cause you to buy or sell things. I think buying a stock and betting on next quarter's earnings, and actually, by the way, a lot of professional investors do this. I think it's just, one, it's no fun. Two, it's not a great way to live your life. And I don't think it's a very good way to make money. It's hard to take a long-term view when you've only been at it for a short-term, kind of period of time. But the power of compounding, which you don't really appreciate, at an early stage in life, is vast, and the ability to invest on a tax-deferred basis. People underestimate, the frictional costs of buying and selling, principally, taxes. So I would say that's one of the big ones. The get-rich-quickly thing can cause you to make sort of big mistakes.
On the topic of shareholder activism, you briefly touched upon and recognized the impressive EPS growth in Japan in the recent years. I mean, as an activist, I would imagine that Japan would be a pretty interesting region. Most of the companies have pretty large net cash positions. Essentially, all of them are priced at a bargain compared to their American peers. And most importantly, they have pretty poor capital allocation practices. Is Japan perhaps what the US was in the early 90s in terms of shareholder activism? And are you guys looking into Japan?
Sure. So we're not looking into Japan. I would say shareholder activism requires a local presence and also local language skills, in my view. I think it's very hard to be an activist in a country, 20 hours away, where the principal language that's spoken is not English. Even if you got yourself on the board, what if all the conversations are held in Japanese? It's not going to be, maybe with Google Translate, in AI, it gets easier. But not being familiar with the culture, the systems, and, many countries are not as receptive to activists, if you will, coming from the outside. We had this issue in Canada when we ran a proxy contest, against one of the most iconic Canadian companies, and it was very hard for us to recruit Canadian directors to serve because everyone knew, no one wanted to go against kind of the high-profile people in Canada. So I think it's a much greater challenge. Now, for the reasons that you describe, I think Japan may be a very interesting environment for activism. And in fact, the president encouraged shareholder activists, a while back. And I think, part of the reason for progress in both the Japanese economy, Japanese stock market relates to, an environment where more pressure is being brought to bear on companies and they're acting in a more shareholder kind of oriented fashion. So really the best thing a country can do, which has a lot of underperforming companies, is create a very welcoming environment regulatory-wise, legal-wise, and otherwise, for activists to be successful in the market. But I would rather, if I'm going to be an activist in a country, I want to work with a local partner who really had the relationships, understood the, kind of local, important cultural and other legal aspects.